Welcome, brother or sister, to Project Okami. Thank you so much for trusting me to help you get back to your feet. Without further ado, let's get into the video, okay? Okay, so firstly, again, I would like to really thank you for trusting me to help you get back to your feet. I promise you, right, by the end of this project, you will be back on your feet and striving for greatness. Okay, Bismillah. Okay, now, if you are watching this, it means that you are basically someone who knows you have potential. You know that you are meant for so much more. You know that you are capable of achieving more. You know that you are not lazy. You know that you are wasting your potential right now and you hate it. Okay, you hate it so much, right? But you just can't seem to get out of it. Okay, you just can't seem to go back to the killer version of you, and I know exactly how that feels. Trust me, I know exactly how that feels. Okay, I know how much you hate it, which is why I created this in the first place. Okay, to create a system that I wished the Kai in March 2025, right, when he was down bad, had access to. Okay, because if he had this exact system, right, he would have gotten out of that rut so much faster. Okay, so now here's the promise. Okay, I want to make it extremely clear with you. Okay, I am not here to fix your life. I'm here to help you get back to your feet. Okay, that's it. Project Okami is like a reset. It's a short system designed to help you stabilize before you try and go again. Okay, I am trying to help you to stand out, right, before you can walk or even run again. Okay, now we rebuild our structure first, growth comes later. Okay, now there will be a few core lessons, each with their own takeaways and activities for you to do. Okay, I don't want you to rush this. I don't want you to binge them. Okay, you are not supposed to complete all of this in a single day. Okay, now I want you to complete them in order and actually spend time doing the activities from each video. Okay, but I want you to make a promise to me. Okay, the only way Project Okami is going to work is if you are willing to be honest with yourself, uncomfortable, and consistent for just a few days. Okay, I'll be sharing my most vulnerable thoughts and feelings as well and go through the activities together with you. And the only reason for that is so that I can I hope that you can also be vulnerable with me. Okay, I feel like it takes two hands to clap. There's no point in you trying to be vulnerable with me if I am not vulnerable. Okay, so I'm gonna be letting my gut down first so that you are able to let your gut down and be honest with yourself. Be honest when you are doing all of these activities. Okay, because that's the only way that you will actually see any progress, and that will be the only way in which this project, right, this program will actually help you. Okay, now I am not here to motivate you and give you all of these affirmations. I am not going to be shouting at you or whatever not. I am not going to be giving you all of these kind of like fake motivations that you need or you want to hear. Okay, because you can find all of that in YouTube. Okay, I am here to give you a structure, a system to actually help you get out of this hole that you are in. Okay, your only job is to follow honestly. Okay, can you make that promise to me? Are you willing to stop fighting yourself just for the next few days and follow the system? If you are, move on to lesson 1. Okay, if you are not, take a breather, pause, and make sure that you only move on to lesson 1 when you are able to make that promise to me. Welcome to lesson 1, acceptance. Okay, if you are watching this video, it means that you basically made the promise to not only yourselves, but to me as well, that you are going to be honest and vulnerable and going to be actually listening and following the whole system. Okay, now, the first thing, right, that we need to do before we even get into all of the systems is to slow down for a moment. Okay, I need you to slow down with me for a moment. So let's all take a deep breath together. Okay, I want you to open up your hands like this and then just breathe. Okay, now because if you are anything like how I was back in March 2025, right, your mind is constantly noisy. Okay, you are replaying the past conversations, you're asking yourself what you did wrong, you are thinking about what you should have done differently, and you're worrying about the future. Right? And I understand how that feels, right? Because I've gone through it, right? And this is why I want to say this very, very clearly. Okay, you are not stuck right now because you are weak. You are stuck right now because you are fighting something that has already happened and you are not allowing yourself to accept. Okay, and the reason for that, right, is I'm gonna go through that later, but I want to share this a bit. I'm gonna share my story a bit. Okay, I'm gonna be very vulnerable with you right now. And if you start to see me, I guess, tear up or something, just know that it's not because of regret or that I haven't gotten over it. I'm just getting reminded of the beauty of the lesson. Okay, now the reason why I want to share all of this and basically be vulnerable with you is because I want, like I mentioned, I want you to be vulnerable with me as well. Okay, and I feel like I need to lower my guard down first before you are able to lower your guard. Okay, so we are going to go way back here, okay? But from 2019 all the way to mid 2023, right? I was in a relationship with this girl called Stacy. Okay, let's just call her Stacy. Okay, and the relationship was a very like hot and cold kind of relationship. Okay, where it was my second relationship, but my first proper one that I would say like, cause my secondary school relationship, I don't think I don't think it was proper lah. Okay, so when I mean by hot and cold relationship, right? It is basically like when we are arguing, it's like arguing, and when we are like loving, it was like loving kind of relationship. Okay, so it was very hot and cold. Okay, but in June 2023, right, I decided that enough was enough, and I broke up with her, right? And right after that, in August 2023, just 2 months after I met this girl in uni, and I started talking to her and got together with her. Okay, let's call this girl Gwen. Okay, obviously these are fake names. Okay, Gwen was a very beautiful lady, very soft-spoken, very religious, good character, overall good person. Okay, but as time went on, I found her boring. We didn't have any arguments, we didn't have this hot and cold relationship, and everything was stable. Okay, and at that point of time, I realized that like I didn't like it, because considering that I have just got out of a hot and cold relationship, it felt very different and I wasn't used to it, right? So then I decided to break up with Gwen in March 2024 and basically get back together with my ex Stacy, right? And that's when things started to get downhill. Okay, not because of Stacy, but because of myself. Okay, I focused too much on the relationship with Stacy. Things were hot and cold again, and because of that, I let it affect my relationship with everything else, especially my business partner. Okay, things were going well in my business, by the way. We were running Okami, my clothing brand, Viral Visions, my marketing agency, and also recently we just opened up an F&B, which is called Steamboat Chapel Claypot Prawn. Okay, and everything was going well, business was thriving, all of that. I was at the hawker stall a lot, so there were a lot of people coming up to me, telling me how much of an inspiration I was, all of that. And when someone comes up to you and shakes your hand and tell you, you have really been an inspiration to me, it means a lot compared to basically when I see it online lah, right? And everything was going well. But one day in August 2024, my business partner told me that he wanted to talk. And I thought that this was just gonna be a normal conversation where like we always had lah, right? But this time around it was different. He basically told me that he wanted to quit being business partners because he felt that I was neglecting him. And this again, I take full responsibility for. And just like that, everything was gone basically. I lost my business partner. My team decided to leave me as well because most of my team were his friends. And I also walked away from the F&B business. And now I had to do everything alone. Okay, I had to pick up everything that they left and essentially do all of their jobs. And remember, at this point of time, we were running both Okami and also Viral Visions. So just imagine, right? I had all of these clients that I had to serve and deliver the results for, but now alone. So you can just imagine how freaking hectic it was lah. Like I just overworked like crazy. And because of that, I neglected everything else. I neglected my relationship with my family. I neglected my relationship with Stacy. I neglected my relationship with my health. All I did was just work, wake up, work, and barely got any sleep. And the worst thing is, right, I was doing it all out of anger. All out of anger. Every day I wake up, I was just angry. I hated the world, bro. I really hated the world. And all I did was just question myself. What if I didn't do that? What if why did I mess this up? Why am I like this? And like, is this it? Is this all what my hard work turned into? And I kept asking myself like, why me, bro? Why? Right? And truth to be told, I was not nice to be around with. And that's why as much as an amazing person Stacy is, as much as an amazing and supportive person Stacy is, everybody has their limits. Fuck, I'm crying. Yeah, so in March 2025, she decided that enough was enough and basically she broke up with me. Which got me even down bad lah, right? Because I was heartbroken. I resented my business. I hated how I looked. I hated my emotions. I was angry at the world. And I lost any purpose that I had in life. And not only that, I also recently just dropped out of uni, which also disappointed my parents even more. And I refused to accept it, bro. I refused to accept who I was. I refused to accept that this was just it. And because to me, if I accepted it, right, it means that I'm giving up. It means that I'm surrendering, right? But that's where I went wrong. And I want to kill this wrong belief that you probably have. Because if you're like me, you think that acceptance is not approval. Okay, if you're like me, you think that acceptance is basically surrendering. Okay, but I want to tell you, right, that acceptance is not approval. Acceptance is not surrendering, and acceptance is not you lowering your standards. Okay, acceptance is finally stopping that internal war with yourself, with your heart, with your brain. Okay, and I wished, right, I really wished I knew this earlier, because that internal war is the thing that is exhausting you right now. That internal war is what is keeping you in this hole right now. You're not tired because you're doing too much, okay? But because you're still carrying the things that has already happened. You're still worrying about what was when it has already happened. Okay? Your body is here, you are here right now with me, but your mind is still way back there. Right? And I want you to kill this belief right now. Just switch it off right now. Okay? I want you to understand that the past is the past. There's nothing we can do about it. The past is the past. There is no timeline for recovery. There is no deadline for healing. And beating yourself up for not being okay is the exact reason why you are not okay. Let me repeat that again. Beating yourself up for not being okay is the exact reason why you are not okay. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are just resisting reality. And whatever that you resist, persist. Okay? So here's what I want you to understand. Okay? You don't move forward, right, by fighting the past. You move forward by putting it down. You move forward by letting it all go. Okay? Let's imagine this. Let's imagine that you're carrying a heavy bag and you're carrying it for way too long already. Okay? And you're tired, your muscle is aching, and like every step you take, right, is painful and just difficult. Right? Does this mean that your muscle, right, is failing because you're weak? No. It means that your muscle is failing because you never let go. You never drop the bag. Okay? Please understand, right, that letting go doesn't mean that you liked what happened. Okay? It just means that you are done paying for it every single day. It just means that you are done carrying the burden every single day. And I hope you realize that. Okay? So, I want you to basically just let go of whatever was. Now, you might be thinking, how? How do I actually do that? So let's get into the exercise. Okay? So again, we are gonna be doing something real because at the end of the day, I'm not just gonna give you theory, right? This will be something that is very uncomfortable, but trust me on this, if you are able to just be vulnerable with your emotions and thoughts for just a few hours, your whole life will change. Okay? If you don't have the time to do it right now, pause the video and get back to this when you have at least 1 hour to spare. Okay? I want you to take a piece of paper or a journal and a pen. I highly recommend a journal because all of these exercises that we're going to be doing for the following lessons as well will require you to write down things. So having a journal is a good place to keep everything together. Okay? Now, I want you to basically write this question down. What am I still carrying? Okay? Write down everything you're still carrying, what you lost, what you regret, what still plays in your head when you're alone, the breakup, the mistake, the failure, the version of you that disappeared. Get it all out. Okay? Now, again, like I mentioned, I'm going to be doing this together with you. Because I believe that for me to actually teach you something, you need to attach an emotion to it. And what better way to attach an emotion to something than experiencing it together. Okay? So you can watch me write a few things down, right? And basically get the idea of how it's meant to be, right? And then after that, you can pause the video and like get back to it once you're done, right? I'll probably put a timestamp here to when you can skip to the next step, basically. Okay, so again, step one is basically to write down what am I still carrying. Okay, so basically I still wrote down already I wrote down what am I still carrying, and this can be anything. Okay, so this can be, for example, like the breakup, for example, or like losing your business, failing the exams, or wasting a year, for example. It can also be the like this one thing that you keep replaying in your mind every single day because this one mistake that keeps you awake every single day. It can be you losing the version of you that was like this disciplined guy, this confident guy, you losing that version. It can also be like letting your parents down. It can also be like knowing you could have done more but you didn't. It could also be like the fear that you never get back to who you were. It could also be like the feeling of, falling behind, like you feeling that you are behind people your age. It can literally be anything. Okay, I don't want you to filter things. I don't want you to basically just stop yourself. I want you to just think of whatever negative things that is coming to your mind, and whatever that you think is holding you back. I want you to just write it all down. Okay, so for me, for example, what I wrote is, this is me back in, I'm channeling me back in March 2025. Okay, what I wrote down is basically, I am still carrying the burden that I have with my business. I am still regretting the fact that I broke up with Gwen because I thought she was boring. Yeah. I am still regretting the fact that I didn't treat my business partner and also my team well. I am still regretting the fact that I walked away from the F&B business. Okay, whatever I am still carrying the burden of the fact that I lost myself, the fact that I was such a confident and fit and confident guy, but I lost it all back in March 2025. I lost all of this confidence. So I put that myself. I lost myself. That kind of thing. Okay. So I just want you to write down whatever that you are still carrying. Okay. Just write down every single thing that you are still carrying, and I don't want you to filter everything. Okay. So whatever that you lost, whatever that you regret, whatever that still plays in your head when you're alone, write it all down. Okay. You can pause the video right now and just write it all down. Spend some time with it. Okay. Now, once you are done with that, right, step 2 is basically to do control versus no control. Okay, now I want you to draw a line down the page, right? After all of your regrets, everything like that, draw a line, and on one side, I want you to write what you could control. Okay, on the other side, I want you to write what I couldn't control. Okay, and for each of the burdens that you wrote down, right, I want you to be honest, right, and write down what you could control and what was out of your control. Okay, this part, right, to be very honest with you, it hurts a lot because you have to look into yourself and actually be accountable. Okay, I don't want you to play the victim mindset. That is not what we are doing right now, but I want you to take accountability for what you can control and what you cannot control. Okay, because a lot of the guilt, right, that you are carrying was never yours to begin with. How crazy is that? Okay, so for example, for me, right, one of the things that I regretted back in March 2025 was basically the fact that I didn't treat my business partner and also my team well, right? So then all I need to do is just write down what I can control and what I couldn't control. Okay, so what I could control is basically how I treated them. Okay, me checking up on them, how I talk to them, how I treat them, how I behave around them, how much I care for them, all of that kind of thing. That's what I can control, right? What I cannot control is whether they actually want to leave or not, whether they like who I was as a person, whether they like who I was as a boss, stuff like that. That I cannot control, right? So you just write things down, what I can control and what I couldn't control. Okay, if you want to look at it, right, just if you're having a hard time with this, just think about it as like what you can control is basically what actions you can do, okay, or what thoughts you can do. Okay, and what you cannot control is whatever that is in the external world. So whatever that requires someone else's decision, for example, you cannot control that. Okay, or whatever that requires the environment, for example, you cannot control that. For example, you cannot control when COVID happened, right? But what you can control is how you reacted to COVID. Okay, another example that I can give you is basically one of the regrets that I have was breaking up with Gwen because I thought that she was boring, right? Because of this hot and cold relationship and stable, whatever not. Okay. Why I regretted it, by the way, is because I realized that after a while, I realized that that's exactly what I wanted. Like that's exactly what kind of relationship that I needed or that I wanted. Okay, so what I can control, right, is not what I cannot control is how she behaves, how she is as a person, how her character is. That I cannot control, right? But what I can control is how I view the relationship, how I make myself more exciting, or how I try to make things more exciting by going on more fun dates or whatever, or having more things that I can talk about with her that is more exciting, for example, that is what I can control. Okay, so I want you to just pause the video again, right? And just write down what you can control and what you cannot control. Okay, a few more examples to help you out with it, right? Is example, what I can control is I could control how much effort I put in. I could control my response after the breakup. I can control whether I ask for help. I can control how I coped with, like, for example, let's say you are facing a porn addiction or dopamine addiction. Okay, you can control with how much you cope with those kind of addiction. You can control whether you stay disciplined or not. You can control with how honest you are with yourself. Okay, what you cannot control is you cannot control other people's feelings. You cannot control people leaving. You cannot control the timing of whatever that was happening. You cannot control the expectations that people set on you. You cannot control how things fell apart. You cannot control whether it rains or not, that kind of thing, right? So all of that you cannot control. Okay, so again, pause the video and just think of what you can control and what you can actually not control. Okay? Now, let's move on to step 3. This, to me, is the most beautiful thing because it allows you to actually just move forward. Okay? Which is step 3, is the lesson. Okay? So for the things that you can control, right, I want you to basically write this down. What did this teach me? This is not to shame you, but to extract the lessons that we learn. Okay? Because pain without a lesson becomes trauma. And pain with a lesson becomes wisdom. Okay? So, let me give you a quick example. I think in like end of March 2025, right, after I broke up with after I broke up with Stacy, right, my ex, I went to, like, there was this week, right, during puasa, there was this week during Ramadan, during fasting month, there was this week where I met everybody that meant a lot to me. Like, I terserempak, I accidentally met people that meant a lot to me. All in the same week. I met my business partner, I met my ex-business partner, I met with Stacy, accidentally met with Stacy, I accidentally met up with Gwen, or like, I accidentally saw her, I accidentally met up with my first ever ex back in secondary school. All 4 of them, I accidentally met in the same week. And mind you, when during March 2025, I was down bad, right? So when I met them, when I accidentally met them, right? And it was in the weirdest of random of places, bro. One of them I met in Malaysia, bro, in JB, which was damn weird. Okay, when I accidentally met them, right? Imagine just how I feel. I was really down bad. I was angry at everything, and then I just met them, and then I was just like, every single one of them, right, were in a better position than myself. When I met my ex-business partner, he was with our ex-client together and like doing things for our ex-client. When I met with Gwen, she was recording content, doing her influencer stuff. When I met with Stacy, she was doing her own thing as well. When I met up with my first ever ex, she was also together with her boyfriend and her family and whatever not. Okay, again, I didn't meet them because I wanted to meet them, okay? It was accidental, okay? And then I was just thinking to myself, like, damn. Obviously, I believe that I didn't meet them by accident, right? Especially all in 1 week. And I was just thinking to myself, like, why did I actually meet them? And that's when I realized step 3, which is I tried to extract whatever lesson that was. Okay, and the lesson that I extracted from that whole week, right, was that everyone that used to mean a lot to me is doing fine. They are doing well right now. So maybe this is a sign for me to just accept, and maybe this is a sign that they have already moved on and I should also move on. Maybe this is a sign that they have already forgiven me and I should forgive myself as well. That was the lesson that I took from it. And that gave me the permission again to just move on, right? So I want you to do the same thing. I want you to look at all of these burdens that you have, and then you extracted them from, and you extracted all of the lessons that you extracted all of the things that you could control, right? And from that, you can see what are the lessons that you can take away from it. So again, let me give you an example. One of the regrets that I had was that the fact that I broke up with Gwen because I thought she was boring, right? I didn't like that kind of relationship. Although she was a very wonderful woman, although she was a very religious kind of woman, whatever not, I broke up with her because I thought that that the relationship was boring. Okay, but then the thing that I could control was basically how I can make myself more exciting, how I can view the relationship, and how I can basically just accept, or not accept, but like realize that that is what I want. Okay, so what the lesson that I learned from that burden, right, or that regret, right, is that, okay, now I know what I want in a relationship. Now I know what I want in a partner. I don't want this hot and cold relationship anymore. I want something that is stable, something that I can go home to, something that I can just, after a long day of work, just go home to and be at home. Right? So that's a lesson that I learned. Okay, another example is basically me regretting the fact that I didn't treat my business partner or my team well. Okay, and what I could control is basically how I treat them. Right? I can control how I treat them, how I talk to them, how my emotions are with them, that kind of thing. So what can I learn now? What's the lesson that I can take away from this? Okay, I can take a learn. What did it teach me? Right? It taught me how to actually treat my team better. Right? It taught me how important people skills are, how important communication skills are. So now moving forward, what can I do? I can learn all about how to talk to people, how I can learn about how to treat people better, how I can ensure that my team is always, the motivation is always high. And when I did this, right, back in March 2025, I was like damn obsessed with basically learning how to treat my team better, right? And treat people better. And that's when I realized now, my team, they're all enjoying working. You can ask every single one of them, all of them enjoy working with me, right? So that is what I want you to do. I want you to basically just sit down, right? Look at what you can control. Look at the burden that you already have. Look at what you can control. Ignore whatever that you cannot control. Whatever that you cannot control, you ignore that. Because that is, again, out of your control. But what you can control, you ask yourself, what did this teach me? How am I going to move forward, right? If let's say I want to move forward, what am I going to be doing differently instead? Okay, what should I learn, right, to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Okay, so pause the video right now, spend some time to actually do this, and come back to this later. Okay, again, I want you to really spend some time doing this because this is very, very important. You actually need to sit down and really just think about it. Okay, if possible, just a tip, what I want you to do is just be out in nature. Okay, or like if you're at home, just make sure that you're focused on this one task. Don't have music playing in. If you want to have music, play all of those like lo-fi, like frequency, study music, focus music kind of thing, so that you can actually really understand and focus and let your brain go wild. Okay, you need to really sit with this. I know it's gonna be uncomfortable, but I want you to really sit with this. Okay, so pause the video right now and carry on with that. Okay, so now you're done. Okay, so now we are at step 4, closure. This is the last step, and firstly, I want to say that I respect you for going this far. I respect that you're watching it this far even. The last step is just closure. Okay, now on that piece of paper, on that page of journal, right, I want you to just write this down and read it out loud to yourself. This chapter is closed. I take the lesson, not the weight. Oh shit. Okay, sorry, I thought about something. This chapter is closed. I take the lesson, not the weight. Write that down and read it out loud to yourself as many times as you need to really internalize it. This chapter is closed. I take the lesson, not the weight. Okay? Now, sit with it for a moment. Take a deep breath and process what you just wrote down and said to yourself. You might feel emotional, you might feel numb, you might feel already lighter. And all of that is okay. Again, this chapter is closed. I take the lesson, not the weight. Okay? I hope that you're proud of yourself for doing this. Now, from today onwards, right, when your mind goes back to the past, I want you to remind yourself of this rule. If it already happened, I don't argue with it. You are no longer debating it. You are no longer replaying the moment. You are no longer punishing yourself for it. Okay? You are just acknowledging it. You take a deep breath and then you come back to the present. That's it. Okay? I don't want you to be living in the past anymore. All of that is the past. All of that are just now distant memories. Okay? It doesn't define who you are right now. It doesn't define who you are going to be. It's just the past. Okay? You are no longer carrying all of the weight. You have finally put the bag down. You just took all of the lessons that whatever has happened. Okay? And now you're just moving forward with things. Okay? I hope that you realize what we just did together. Okay? We just accepted our past, and our past no longer carries this burden that it used to. Remember, when your mind drags you back to those past, which it will, the memories, the good things that happen, and all of that, right? All you need to do is just say to yourself, it already happened, I learned from it, now I move forward. Okay? Repeat that again, and again, and again. Because, trust me, I know how this works, okay? I know one day, randomly, you are gonna be thinking about your ex again. I know one day you're gonna be thinking about all of the good memories that you had together with her or him. I know that you are going to be thinking about all of the business decision that you regretted and you feel like you should have done better. It's good. It's good to think all of that. But I want you to know that it has already happened. And you have already took out the lessons that you can learn from it. Right? In your journal, you already took out the lessons that you have learned from it. Now, you just move forward with it. Don't dwell in the past. Okay? Now, if this is too much for today, then take a break. Remember, this is not supposed to be pitched. Okay? In the next lesson, we are going to talk about reality. The real version of who you are. Okay? And I promise this to you, you are not as far gone as you think. Okay? So I'll see you in the next lesson. I hope this has helped. If you are still clueless, or if you are still in need of any help, rewatch this video again and again. Okay? Thank you. Take care. See you in the next lesson.